Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Megan Easton. I manage annuity training and education with Athene. Thank you for joining me today. I always want to start by just taking a moment to say thank you, and I really mean it. I know that you guys have incredibly hectic schedules, and I do appreciate you taking time out of your day to hear and see something new from Athene. So thank you for your time. Let's take care of some housekeeping items before I dive into it today. I do anticipate the call lasting right at 30 minutes in length. I have the call jam-packed with a lot of exciting information. We're going to start with the Index View presentation, Index Annuities from Origins to Alts that you see on the screen right now. I am then going to introduce you to our brand new Index U website and show you all the great value-add content that you can find there. And I'm going to end today's call talking about Firelight. It's our e-app system that has gotten a great deal of attention, and I want to make sure that you guys know how to utilize it and where to find it. So I expect the call to last probably 30 minutes in length or so. It's a very large group today, so we're going to keep the lines throughout the duration of the call so everybody gets to hear all the great content without any distractions. I want to make sure to get your questions answered, though. So there's a few things that we can do. You're going to notice in the bottom corner of your screen a chat box. Please feel free to chat questions to me as they come to mind. I will review those throughout the presentation and answer them as they make sense. If for some reason I don't get to your question, I will reach out to you proactively following today's call, either me or the sales desk. So please know your question will be answered. There's also a survey at the end of today's call. Feel free, if you need materials, any follow-up items, or if you do have questions, you can utilize that survey for those type of requests as well, and we will reach out to you following today's call. The call is being recorded. I want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. I will provide a link to today's call via email directly following the presentation. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. The first part of the presentation is all about index annuities from origins to alts. We're going to do a level set and talk about the basics of fixed index annuity, and then we're going to dive deeper into the index conversation. One thing we have done very well as an industry is create and fine-tune these pricing strategies, the interest crediting strategies. We have fine-tuned them so well, they have become very complex. And what we did very well as an industry, again, is we entered them into the market 3-4 years ago as alternate index strategies. What we did not do a very good job of is educating our marketing partners, educating our agents in the field on how these alternate index strategies work, what's the benefit to the clients, and why we should be discussing these type of strategies within our clients' FIA portfolio. So we're going to spend some time on alternate index strategies today so you guys have some really good highlights and talking points to communicate to your clients. And then again, like I spoke about a few minutes ago, we're going to talk about the brand new Index View website that's jam-packed with value-add content to continue that education. And then I'm also going to show you where you can find our e-apps online. Now, when I talk about the annuity spectrum, and this is a conversation that I've had from the beginning of when I started in the industry, when I started training on the very basics of annuities. You know, there's two big types of annuities. You have your immediate income annuity that has no deferral period whatsoever, your SPIA. Because the client is going to get an income amount right off the bat, there is no deferral. There's very little risk there, right? Because there's very little risk, there's very little deferral period, the return to the client's going to be minimal. That's your SPIA, your single premium immediate annuity, your income annuity. The other large type of annuity is a deferred annuity. Now, when we talk about a deferred annuity, there's really three main categories. The first is on the far left-hand side is your traditional fixed annuity. That is your fixed duration contract. That's your MIGA account. You're going to give the insurance company X amount for Y years, and you know what that rate of return is going to be. That's the lower risk, lower return deferred annuity. On the other side of the spectrum, on the far right spectrum for the deferred annuity is a variable annuity. As you guys probably know, variable annuities are fully vested in the market. The client has all that upside and downside risk potential. Because that risk is higher, their return potential is going to be greater on a variable annuity. And smack dab right in the middle of a traditional fixed annuity and a variable annuity is our fixed indexed annuity. The fixed indexed annuity is going to have the upside potential of the market without that downside risk. So the risk and return is right there in the middle between the traditional fixed and the variable annuity. Now, we've seen a big shift lately in fixed indexed annuity sales. For the first time ever, first quarter of 2016, FIAs actually surpassed variable annuity sales. Well, why is that? There's a lot of reasons. We've seen market turmoil. We've seen a lot of the benefits on those variable annuities and associated income riders. The benefits, the features have come down. They've become less competitive. We have seen a shift in dynamics. We now have 14% of the U.S. population at retirement. That's more than we've ever had before. Because of all of these factors and economics, we're now seeing a shift from variable annuities to fixed indexed annuities. First time ever, FIA sales are surpassing VA sales. And with the continued numbers of the baby boomers moving into retirement, I fully expect that to continue. So this is the perfect time to have the conversation here today, and then for you guys to make sure you're having the FIA conversation with your clients. Now, again, just to hit on some of those benefits of an FIA contract, it's protection from the downside market risk. That's going to be a big differentiator with the variable annuities, right? The VAs, you see all the ups and downs in the market. With an FIA contract, just the upside. The downside is protected. We do have guaranteed growth. There is a fixed account within these FIA contracts that offer a fixed rate of growth, and then also there's potential upside growth depending on the strategy and the market. So let's take a look at how an FIA contract actually works. And this is where we get more into that index strategy conversation. On the far left-hand side, you're going to see what the true index is. A true standalone index has all the up and downside potential. It could go up, it could go down. There's no safety mechanisms in place. Now, if you move over to the middle column, the middle graphic, that's your FIA contract. The fixed index annuity is going to have the upside potential, but remember, the insurance company comes into play and says, we're going to guarantee you, client, that you're not going to have any negative return. So on the far right-hand side, the dark blue line, that's the cost of us to give that client that extra guarantee. That no downside risk costs us something. So the client's going to be capped, or they're going to be limited in the upside potential that they do have. And that dark blue that you see there, that's what the client actually gets to participate in a return. The difference between, on the far right-hand side, the difference between that dark blue and the light blue is the cost. That's the cost that it costs the distributor to offer that no downside risk guarantee. Now, when fixed indexed annuities were created, we had several different strategies, several different ways of calculating rates of return for the client. We have contracts that are cap contracts, spread contracts. Some are cap and spread. The most recent contracts are participation rate contracts. So what I'm doing on this screen is I wanted to do some number crunching for you. So we're actually looking at different scenarios to determine how would the rate of return to the client have worked out at the end of the day. So let's take a look at a cap. The cap contract is really saying, in this example, the client can't earn more than 4% on that contract. So if the index earns 4%, the client's getting 4%. If it earns 12%, the client gets 4%. That's the way a cap contract works. A spread contract says we're going to take a certain percentage off of the rate of return for that client at the end of the day. So let's say hypothetically a 2% spread. If the index earns 4%, at the end of the day the client's going to get 2%. If it earns 12%, the client's going to get 10%. And then finally, on the far right-hand side is a participating contract. The newer contracts are written as tend to be written as participating. You know, back when FIAs first entered the market, they were caps and cap and spread combo. Now we're seeing a shift to participating. Well, we're going to show you why that is. In this example, we're going to have a hypothetical contract that has a 90% participation rate. That means the client actually gets to participate or see a return of what the 90% of what the market does. So in this example, if the market does 4%, the client's going to get 3.6%. If the index returns 12%, the client's going to get 10.8%. What I want you to take away from this slide is as the index return increases, as that potential to the client increases via the index, the participating rate contract is going to give the client the potential for higher rates of return over a cap contract and over a spread contract. And I'm going to come back to this slide. We're going to get into the why. Why are these participating rate contracts popular right now? Why are they able to offer the client a higher potential for return? Before I get there, I want to answer a question that I get all the time. And I totally understand why. There's so many interest crediting strategies out there, and they're different from FIA contract to FIA contract. And when you go sit in front of your client, you want to narrow and focus them. And so the question I get is, which one should I highlight for my client? What strategy is going to perform the best? Well, what we have done is we've taken 4 of our strategies and we've back tested them over historical data. And what we have come up with is this chart. To me, it reminds me of a periodic table that you would see in your science classes. But what we have seen is that one strategy does not perform better. They perform differently given different market conditions. They are structured differently. They're meant to perform differently given different market conditions. We actually, when we look at strategies, we want structure. We want different types of structure per strategy, so we have a well-diversified portfolio. We're going to get into this in more detail, but I always like the idea of diversification, talking about diversification to your clients over their strategies. Talk about reallocation. That's a great benefit of fixed indexed annuities that I don't think we talk about enough. They get to choose from several interest crediting strategies to make sure their portfolio is very diversified, but that they can reallocate on a regular basis. They're never just stuck in one strategy. I always think that's a great bullet point, great highlight to fixed indexed annuities that we don't always talk about enough. So let's start talking about the interest crediting strategies. The big one that has been on FIA contracts since day one is S&P. S&P 500 has become the bellwether index for fixed indexed annuities, which it makes perfect sense. Clients are familiar and feel comfortable with the S&P. Now, I have found we've had other strategies in previous organizations where we put in indexes that the clients are not familiar with. So we have found that client familiarity is very important when talking about the market. So S&P 500 will continue to be a major stake in fixed indexed annuity portfolios. So here's a look at what we have seen since 2011 to 2016. I want to show you how we have evolved with the strategies. S&P continues to be a big stakeholder. In 2011, they had 63% of the market share. Jump forward to 2016, they're still very prevalent at 48%. But what I want to highlight here is the alternate index strategies. Look at 2011. Alternate index strategies were not even a blip on the screen. 0%. Jump forward to 2016, now 22% market share. Why is that? Why we go from 0 in 2011 to 22% in 2016? I want to explain what the alternate index strategies are and go into some more detail there, and then we're going to be able to see why they're such a prevalent feature in today's FIA contracts. We're going to compare the alternate index strategies to a traditional index, and I'm going to compare it to the S&P 500. That's going to be our traditional index for comparison purposes, and we're going to look at those from three major features. Number one is constituents. What makes up those indexes? Maintenance. What do we do on a regular basis to those indexes? And then risk control features. And when I think of an index, I think of a basket. So I want you to think about, as we go through these next couple slides and compare a traditional index to an alternate index strategy, think of a basket. Think of that index as a basket. Let's start with constituents. What makes up that basket? Well, we know with a traditional index, it's very correlated. For instance, the S&P is made up of the top 500 U.S. stock companies. They all look the same. Extremely correlated. An alternate index strategy is diversified. What makes up that basket is very different. It could be diversified based on asset groups, asset classes, geography zones, extremely diversified. Maintenance. Now, what happens to the items in that basket on a regular basis? For your S&P index, very little. We apply a calculation depending on the type of contract, cap, spread, or participation rate contract. We apply a calculation at the end of the index term, which typically you'll see 1, 2, there's some 5 years out there. But then we apply that to the client's rate of return. Very static. An alternate index strategy, on the other hand, maintenance is a big deal. Diversification is a big deal. Maintenance. On a regular basis, we recalculate, we re-weight the constituents in that basket to make sure everything is lined up. Now let's talk about a risk control. The traditional index, such as the S&P, does not have a risk control feature. Alternate index strategies do. And today is all about level setting and making sure we're all on the same page and then building on that. So I wanted to just do a check and make sure everybody knows how the basics of volatility control features work. When you have a volatility control feature in these alternate index strategies, that volatility control feature is there to protect the client against excess market volatility, either upwards or downwards. You really have two buckets of, I won't say buckets of funds, but there's movement between two buckets, a cash component and an index component. And there's automatic movement between those two buckets based on market volatility. As market volatility increases, you're going to see movement from the index into the cash component. As market volatility decreases, you could expect to see movement from the cash into the index component. And this works automatically. And again, the reason for this is to protect the client against excess volatility. I like this graph because it really highlights the power of that volatility control feature. The dark blue line is the S&P index. That's what how the S&P performed. You're going to see all the ups and downs. That's because there is no volatility control mechanism in place. The lighter blue line is an index that has the volatility control feature included. Remember that volatility control feature is there to protect against all the upsides and downsides. So the goal is that nice, easy, gentle increasing line. That's what we're looking for the volatility control features within an alternate index strategy. Now, we introduced 2 new partners and 2 new alternate index strategies last April, so we're right at a year anniversary now. What I want to do is I'm just going to take a deeper dive. We already compared the traditional index, the S&P index, to an alternate index strategy. I now want to dive a little bit deeper into 2 of our alternate index strategies so you can get a feel for how these are created and why we are looking for different types of strategies within our FIA portfolio and why diversification is key. So first up is the Morningstar dividend yield. So the goal, let me back up, the goal of the alternate index strategies is the same, right? It's to provide the client that nice, easy, increasing, gradual line. The goal is the same, but the way that they get there, the methodology is very different. Morningstar is our first row. What they have is a screening process. They first look at all of the dividend-paying organizations, U.S. stock company, dividend-paying organizations. It then goes through a rigorous screening process to come up with the 75 highest-paying dividend stocks. From there, on a quarterly basis, it's reweighted and recalculated to keep everything in line. And it has a 5% volatility control ticker, which means when volatility hits 5% either way, there's going to be movement from the cash component into the index component. Okay? So 75 top-performing U.S. stocks, reweighted on a quarterly basis, 5% volatility ticker. The second row is BNP Paribas MAD5, again introduced in April. The BNP is highly diversified. It's actually made up of 8 asset classes. So their basket that we were talking about is diversified among 8 asset classes and geography zones. And the maintenance on that is daily. So that means on a daily basis, the constituents, what makes up that basket, is reweighted and recalculated to keep everything in line. And they, too, have a 5% volatility ticker. So when you think about the MAD5 from BNP, I want you to think highly diversified and daily rebalancing. So this leads us to a question that I get all the time with the volatility control mechanism. We're already providing insurance and guarantees to the client within a fixed indexed annuity that they're not going to earn anything less than 0. And for that guarantee, they're going to be capped or limited in the participating rate, the rate of return they get at the end of the day. If we're already providing that guarantee and capping their rate of return, why do we want a volatility control mechanism in there that is actually going to limit the volatility? Doesn't that limit even more their rate of return? So what you see here is all the upside and downside that an index might have. And on the far right-hand side, what we're going to show you is a contract that has a volatility control feature in it. So if we have a standard FIA contract with a traditional index, like on the left-hand side here, let's say this FIA is vested in the S&P 500 strategy. On the dark blue line is the rate of return to the client. That's the rate of return that the client gets to participate in. Now look over on the far right-hand side. That is, the dark blue is the rate of return that the client gets to participate in if they're in an alternate index strategy with the volatility control mechanism in place. So what we're actually showing you here is that a client who's in an alternate index strategy actually has the ability, the potential to earn a higher rate of return than the client that's in a traditional index. Why is that? Because by having that volatility control mechanism in place, remember the whole goal of what that volatility control feature is doing is to give the client a nice, easy uptick, an upline, a gradual increase. That volatility ticker actually means that it is more predictable. Less volatility means it is more predictable. That strategy is less expensive to us because it's more predictable. We have a better idea of what the client is going to, what the market will be doing, what the index will be doing, because the market volatility ticker is in place. That volatility ticker, that feature, actually makes that strategy less expensive to us because we take some volatility out, we take risk out, it becomes more predictable, it's more cost effective. We're going to pass that through the client in the form of higher participation rates. When you have higher participation rates and the index is earning more and more, that means that the client actually has the ability to earn more in a participating rate contract with that volatility control mechanism than in a traditional index with your standard cap or spread calculation. That's really the guts and the glory of the alternate index strategies within FIA contracts. Let me review the benefits of it. So again, why we are able to offer the the potential for higher participation rates, which is going to lead to the potential for higher rates of return for your client and the alternate index strategies, is because we have that volatility control feature. That volatility control feature is going to take risk away from us by giving us more predictable index returns, leading to more cost efficiency. We're going to pass that through to the client in the form of higher participation rates, which is going to lead for the potential to higher rates of return over your traditional S&P index. That is why the alternate index strategies have become the new bells and whistles. You know, as products evolve over time, the features evolve and the areas of focus evolve. Where we are right now with fixed indexed annuities are these alternate index strategies with the volatility control features. We're able to pass through more benefit to the client. It helps us from a pricing perspective as well. And again, these have been in the market for 3 or 4 years right now. They're more finely tuned now today than they were 3 or 4 years ago. But what we find is important is to educate you guys on how these work, and not necessarily because you're going to take this information and regurgitate it to your clients. I know that would not make sense to do. But what I hope that we can get after today's 30 minutes together is you can pull some high-level talking points, bullet points, to share with your client why we should be looking at these alternate index strategies within their FIA contracts. They really do provide a lot of benefits to our clients. Now, we already looked several times at the high-level holistic view. I want to take this down to a more detailed notch. And I love this because, to me, this slide brings it all together. And I just looked at my clock. I am running a few minutes over. I apologize. Hang in there 10 more minutes. I promise that there's tons of value-add content coming your way. So let's take a look. This is a 7-day perspective after Brexit. And what you're going to see is why that diversification idea is so important. The dark blue line is our traditional S&P index. Notice it dips the furthest and takes the longest to rebound. We're going to add the turquoise line is the S&P with a 2% risk control feature, an 8% risk control feature. Because it has that volatility mechanism in place, it's not going to dip down as far as a standard S&P, and it's going to be able to rebound faster. Now let's compare that. Let's skip to the dark red line, which is BNP MAD 5. Now remember, the big thing about BNP, it's very diversified. We have daily rebalancing. So what does that mean? That means when other indexes are dipping, that diversification, that daily rebalancing comes into play. We actually don't see a dip in that BNP MAD 5. It does exactly what it's supposed to do with that nice gradual increasing. So again, these strategies were created to perform differently given different market conditions. And that just goes to a little bit about our due diligence process, something to keep in mind. When we do look at strategies and partners in the index space that we want to bring on, such as Morningstar and BNP Paribas, there's a quite extensive due diligence process. We want to make sure that the strategy that they bring to us fits into our already created modules, making sure that we're offering the client diversification opportunity. We also want to make sure that those partners, BNP and Morningstar, for instance, are close to where we believe they should be from a fit of branding purposes. It's a very lengthy process. As soon as we have product ideation, that's when we start talking to index partners and reviewing their strategies. And just to kind of give you an idea of how popular or prevalent this is in the marketplace today, we have index partners, we have strategies coming to us on a regular basis for us to review to put into our FIA contracts. Okay, I'm going to switch gears right now. When we were talking about level setting and the evolution of fixed index annuities and strategies within the marketplace, I still see a great deal of confusion. We have a lot of agents that come through our office. I host agents every other week, training them on our products, positioning on our company. One thing that I'm really seeing more and more is we have agents advisors moving from the AUM business, assets under management, into the annuity sector. And it's because we have the aging clientele, we have different needs in risk tolerance, and so what that demographic is dictating are more agents, more advisors become familiar in this space. So one thing that we have created, and this is brand new, this just launched last week, is our Index U web page. You can find the Index U web page on our website at atheneannuity.com. After you log in, there's two areas I have highlighted here where you can make your way to the Index U website. Once you get to that website, it is going to be jammed-packed with value-add content. We have white papers, sales concepts. There's going to be videos and podcasts. I'll have recordings of calls such as this one out there. But this just launched last week, and the whole idea of it is to further your knowledge, education, training on fixed indexed annuities, whether you are brand new to FIAs or if you've been selling FIAs for some time. There's always things that we can keep in mind, refresh ourselves on, and of course this alternate index conversation. So please take a look at that. I also want to highlight for you our e-apps. We have come to a point in our industry, this is not just the theme, this is industry-wide. NIGOs, as you guys, I'm sure you feel it, are a huge issue. 72 to 75% of the business coming in is NIGO. That is not in good order. What that does is create a whole lot of work for our new business folks, slows processing times, and slows commissions getting paid. So what we want to do is make sure everybody is aware that we do have e-apps available. It saves everybody time. We're not having to go back to you guys to get additional paperwork. We're not having to hold up our new business processors doing follow-up. We can get the new stuff in and out, which means we can get you guys paid faster. All of those benefits are why I really want to encourage you at least try getting on the e-app and doing one, and let us know how you like it. It means less time for you. If you fill out an address on one form, you don't have to fill it out 3 additional times, and you will not be submitting a NIGO. That's one thing I really like about it. You can't submit it until everything is filled out in full. Now, here's where you find it. Again, you're going to go to our website, atheneannuity.com, and on the right-hand side, you're going to see a button that will take you to our e-app. It is extremely simple. If you get hung up on anything or if you have some questions, please feel free to contact our sales desk. They're very familiar with the application and can help you through. I am going to go ahead and post our sales desk number, 188-ANNUITY. Our sales desk is very knowledgeable on Index U. They can always reach out to me if they have any questions. They are familiar with the new Index U website as well as the e-app software. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to them today. Also, if you have any questions over what we've covered quite a bit in 34 minutes. We talked about the evolution of fixed indexed annuities and these alternate index strategies. We talked about the benefits of having an alternate index strategy in your client's portfolio. We talked about the new Index U website that was created to make sure that you guys are up to speed, up to date on all the education around strategies and fixed indexed annuities. And then we also talked about e-app and the simplicity, ease of doing business, and the reduction of NIGOs, and of course, getting you guys paid faster. We covered a lot. I appreciate you staying connected with me. We have several other webinar opportunities coming up this month. Please keep your eyes peeled for those. Again, utilize the chat box. I'll go ahead and keep the meeting open for a few minutes so you can add any chat questions you have. If you'd like to close out, you'll have a survey box that opens up. We'll look at those and help with any needs or follow-up items that you have. So with that, thank you. I appreciate you guys. I always enjoy spending time with you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care. Thank you. Bye.